Hey guys, tonight we sail back over 1,000 years, to an age when the wind smelled like sea salt, fire smoke, and fear. You're not a TikTok scrolling, oat-milk-sipping citizen of the 21st century anymore. You're a young Viking, specifically. You are Cnut, and yes, that name will absolutely get mocked in middle school history books one day. But right now, you're sharpening your blade on a cold fjord cliffside, watching longships slice across gray waves like wolf packs. You're born into chaos, cold winds, and long winters that teach you to survive or die trying. Your father is Sweyn Forkbeard, King of Denmark. He's got a beard that looks like it wrestled a lightning bolt and won, and a temper that's even worse. Your mother, possibly a Polish princess, possibly someone else. Historians still argue whether she was royalty, a hostage, or both. You don't get to choose your parents, but you do get their enemies. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where my fellow time travelers are tuning in from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're maybe 6 years old when your first village burns. It's not your village, technically it's an English one. Your father's war band raided it at dawn. You didn't do any of the stabbing, your arms are still too short for a proper axe swing. But you stood beside the fire, blinking up at the smoke as your father shouted something about revenge, honor, and gold. You try to remember that moment. Years later, when you're older, taller, and a bit less sticky, because that's when you start to understand. Your whole life is a training ground for conquest. You're not playing warrior. You are one. Everything's a test. The cold, toughen up. The sword training, do it blindfolded. The meals? Spoiler alert, it's mostly fish stew, and if you complain, you get extra chores by age 10. You're sailing. By age 12, you've seen more corpses than candles on your birthday cake. Not that Vikings do birthday cakes. We're lucky if we remember the year. There's a moment in your teenage years, you're maybe 15, maybe 16, when your Uncle Håkon takes you out to the coast. He points to a map carved into whale bone and says, "This is where your father will land next." England. You nod, but inside your stomach clenches. England is a big, messy, angry kingdom with about as much internal stability as a chicken on a trampoline. But it's also rich, so rich, monasteries stuffed with gold, fields fat with grain, towns bursting with loot. Your father wants it all. And here's the thing about Forkbeard, he doesn't just want to raid anymore. No, he wants to rule. That's new. The Viking age started with hit-and-run beach parties of the axe and plunder kind. But now, the new wave of Viking elite want thrones, crowns, kingdoms. The kind you write sagas about. As your father begins carving up Norway and pushing into the Baltic, you're expected to keep up. Court meetings, hostage negotiations, sibling rivalries. Welcome to Viking royal life. Oh, and your older brother Harald. Let's just say he's got firstborn energy and a jawline so sharp it could split logs. You're never really sure if he wants to protect you or push you off a cliff. But you're clever. You listen more than you talk. You learn to read the silences between men's words. You mimic the gestures of kings and chieftains when they think you're just a silent teenager, sulking behind the shield pile. One night, huddled in a smoky longhouse as a storm lashes the roof, you overhear your father muttering about the English. King Æthelred, the unready, they call him. Which doesn't mean unprepared, by the way. It means bad at taking advice. Which, to be fair, is also kind of unprepared, isn't it? Forkbeard is planning something massive. Not a raid, a conquest, full invasion. He's building a fleet, rallying allies, bribing lords, threatening bishops. You're not just going along, you're getting a command. Your first command. Do you feel ready? Probably not. But this isn't a movie with a training montage and an inspirational soundtrack. This is 1014 AD. If you hesitate, you die. If you fail, you drown. If you succeed, maybe, just maybe, you'll be more than a warlord's shadow. On the day your fleet sails from Denmark, the sea is restless. Gulls shriek. Waves smack the hulls like angry fists. Your ship is carved with a snarling dragon head, and your cloak is stiff with salt. Behind you, warriors chant Odin. Ahead, the English coast rises like the edge of a treasure map. As the sails unfurl and the wind rips across your face, you grip the rail, thinking of all the sagas you heard as a kid. Heroes with names like Ragnar, Ivar, Rolf, men who changed history with nothing but swords and stupid amounts of confidence. You wonder, just for a second, if your name will be among them someday. Probably not. Most of them didn't get mocked. in modern classrooms. But then again, none of them became King of England. Even if only for 5 ridiculous, glorious, absurd weeks. You land in England like thunder crashing onto the shore ships, scraping up onto pebbled beaches. Men leaping out with axes raised and eyes wild. It's 10:13, and your father, Sweyn Forkbeard, has finally brought his dream to life. A full-scale invasion of England. And you, still barely into your 20s, are by his side. You don't exactly blend in. The English peasants gawk at you like you're a frost giant made of metal. You're tall, armored, silent, and utterly unreadable. That's on purpose. A king in waiting should never let people see him sweat, even if it's mostly because your chainmail itches like mad. Your fleet zigzags along the eastern coast, hitting town after town. Ely, Thetford, Cambridge. Some surrender without a fight, others resist and, well, let's just say they regret it. You're not always in the front ranks, but you're never far. You fight, you command. You write your name in blood and torchlight across the countryside. And then just like that, London folds. The great, stinking, chaotic jewel of the South throws open its gates to your father. And there, amid the soot and rubble, Sweyn Forkbeard is crowned King of England. You stand beside him, half in awe, half in disbelief. You've spent your whole life chasing this moment from across the sea, and now here it is, England. Yours? Well, his, but close enough. And then surprise. He dies. No, not in battle, not assassinated, not even in a dramatic final duel on a moonlit tower. He just keels over. Stroke, heart attack, bad shellfish. Historians still argue whether it was illness or sheer stress that did him in. Whatever it was, it leaves you standing in a freezing tent in Gainsborough with a dead king, a stunned army, and a massive, terrifying question. What now? You want to scream or cry, or punch something, but instead you just sit down, head in your hands, while the war council starts to argue. Some want to retreat, some want to attack London again. A few think it's time to go home and pretend none of this ever happened. You don't say much. You're still numb. Not because you loved your father, he was terrifying, but because suddenly you're the one everyone's looking at. You're not ready to be king. You know it. They know it. And worst of all, the English king, Æthelred the Unready, knows it too. He's still alive. Still brooding in exile in Normandy, probably plotting a triumphant comeback montage in his head. You bury your father with the speed and elegance of a discount Viking funeral. No grand send-off. No saga-worthy farewell, just enough ritual to keep the men from panicking. Then you hold a quick meeting and announce what everyone was dreading. You will finish what he started. Some of your allies cheer. Some frown. One old nobleman clears his throat and suggests very politely that maybe someone more experienced should lead. You give him a slow, cold look and reply, fine. Let's duel for it. He suddenly remembers a prior commitment and leaves the tent. Power, it turns out, is mostly about pretending you have more of it than you do. You start sending messengers to local lords, demanding loyalty. Some reply with swords, others reply with silence. A few actually bend the knee. You don't sleep much, or eat much. You spend your days riding from one stubborn stronghold to another, making promises you're not sure you can keep. The dream of a Danish England flickers in and out like a candle. In a draft, you hold a hasty coronation, not in London to dangerous. Instead, it's a muddy ceremony in a church somewhere in the Midlands. No royal regalia, no cheering crowds. Just a crown that doesn't quite fit and a priest who looks mildly terrified. You're king now. Technically. And yet everything feels wrong. The English aren't rolling over. The nobles are scheming. The peasants are whispering. Even some of your own Viking commanders are starting to question whether you can actually pull this off. To make things worse, Æthelred is stirring. The exiled King of England is negotiating with the Normans, promising reforms, alliances, maybe even an apology tour. You hear rumors he's building an army to reclaim his throne. Your hands are full. You try diplomacy. You try fear. You try bribery. At one point, you even try marrying into English nobility to smooth things over, a clever move that impresses exactly no one. The woman in question looks at you like you're a wet goat that wandered into the dining hall. At night, you lie awake, staring at the roof of your tent, wondering what your father would have done. Then you remember he dropped dead 2 months after getting the crown. Not exactly a long-term strategy. And just when things couldn't get worse, they do. The English rebels start coordinating. Your supply lines falter. Morale dips. Your forces are stretched thin across a country that doesn't want you, fighting for a kingdom that's already slipping through your fingers. You stand on a hill outside Oxford one icy morning, staring down at a battlefield where neither side is moving. You're waiting, planning, bluffing. Inside, you're wondering whether the whole thing was a mistake, whether you should have just gone back to Denmark, ruled the fjords, and told saga stories by the fire. But then, like lightning hitting a hornet's nest, Æthelred returns, not with fire and fury, but with precision and politics. He wins back the nobles one by one. He promises land, gold, mercy. That last one's a lie, obviously. The wind starts to shift. You try to hold on. You tighten your grip, but the tighter you cling to power, the faster it slips away. One morning, your scouts bring the news London has declared for Æthelred. Again, the crown is lost. Again, you feel nothing, just a cold, hollow ache where your ambition used to be. You were supposed to be king. You were king for 5 weeks. So here you are, the king with no kingdom, the Viking prince turned ruler turned fugitive. And let's be real, you don't even get a tragic Shakespearean monologue out of the deal. Just 5 chaotic weeks and a whole continent laughing behind. You're back. You ride out of England with what remains of your army, boots caked in mud and pride in tatters. Your crown, left behind. Your political allies, vanished faster than mead at a wedding feast. You'd half expect a dramatic soundtrack to play you out. But nope, it's just the sound of crows and muttering soldiers wondering if this retreat is part of the plan. Back in Denmark, the mood isn't exactly festive. You return like a failed STARTUP founder pitching a second idea. Okay, so England didn't work out, but what if I told you we'd try again, only with more boats? Spoiler, they're skeptical. You spend the next year doing what failed kings do, regrouping, rebuilding, and trying not to look desperate. You call in favors, you bribe chieftains, you throw lavish feasts and pretend like losing a throne is just a minor setback. Like forgetting your lines during a play. Yes, I meant to cause a constitutional crisis, thanks for asking. But here's the twist, you're actually learning. All those months playing second fiddle to your father, they taught you things. And all those humiliating days trying to rule England, they taught you even more. Like how not to trust half the nobility, or that food shortages can topple thrones faster than swords, or that promising to respect local customs doesn't mean much. When your men are looting churches again, you start to think bigger, smarter. You abandon brute force conquest for something more subtle, for alliances, for long games, for that ancient Viking art of smiling politely while holding a dagger behind your back. And right on cue, England implodes again. Æthelred, bless his endlessly confused soul, manages to ruin his own comeback. Turns out being unready isn't just a cute nickname. He's genuinely terrible at holding a kingdom together. His decisions range from mildly ill-advised to did he hit his head? He starts alienating the very nobles who helped him return. Taxes soar, trust plummets. And the people, they're getting whiplash. And just as the chaos deepens, a wild card enters the game. Edmund Ironside. Yes, his name sounds like a minor Marvel character. But Edmund is Æthelred's son and a surprisingly competent warrior. He's strong, he's bold, and unlike his father, he can actually finish a sentence without apologizing. He starts rallying forces, putting pressure on rebellious nobles, and earning the respect of soldiers who've given up on royal bloodlines altogether. Meanwhile, you're watching from across the sea, sipping mead and muttering, okay, this guy might be a problem. But here's the thing, Ironside might be bold, but he's alone. His father dies in 1016 finally, and the English throne is left wide open. And that's when your second act begins. This time, you don't just invade, you orchestrate. Your fleet returns, stronger, sleeker, and terrifyingly organized. You've learned the rivers, the tides, the timing. You've studied the rhythms of English warfare. And you strike with precision rating, withdrawing, striking. Again, your troops don't just pillage, they disrupt. You sabotage supply lines. You tempt defectors. You peel away loyalty from Edmund like bark from a frostbitten tree. And best of all, you have London under siege. That's right, again. You must have a loyalty punch card by now. 3 sieges, get a monastery free. But here's the problem. Edmund won't give up. He meets you at a sand-in October 1016. It's a muddy, brutal clash. Both sides fight like they've got everything to lose because they do. You're knee-deep in blood and rain, your helmet cracked, your breath burning in your chest. But somehow, through sheer force and clever tactics, you win. It's not just a victory. It's a signal, this is your moment. But rather than pressing for total conquest, you do something unexpected, you negotiate. Historians still argue whether this was brilliance or desperation. But you and Edmund agree to a peace treaty. England will be split between you. You rule the north and Midlands, Edmund keeps the south. And when one of you dies, the other gets everything. A strange deal, right? Well, stranger still, Edmund dies within weeks. Some whisper poison. Others say illness. A few suggest one of your spies may have nudged things along. But there's no proof. Just whispers on the wind. And you sitting quietly in your tent, watching the candle flicker, knowing that you are now undisputed king of England. Not for 5 weeks this time. This time, it sticks. But hold up, this isn't the triumph it sounds like. Not yet. England is still fractured. The North resents you. The South is suspicious. The Church watches closely. Your allies whisper. Your enemies plot. And you're still not English, you're a foreigner, a Dane, a Viking outsider. You're going to have to roll carefully, cautiously. You appoint English advisors. You promise fair laws. You rebuild towns. You even marry Queen Emma, Æthelred's widow, to help calm the political waters. Yep, your enemy's wife is now your queen. It's awkward at Christmas dinner. But hey, politics. You try to become something new, not just a warlord. Not just a Viking, but a king. A real one. It's not easy. And you never forget how fragile this all is. How thin the line between crown and coffin really is. But for now, you hold it. The kingdom. The power. The legacy. And the long, strange memory of those first 5 chaotic weeks when you held the throne, lost it, and clawed your way back again. Now, here's where things get surreal. You've just gone from exile to emperor in the making. You're now King of England, the whole messy, rebellious, suspicious, lootable thing. But nobody throws a welcome parade. There's no confetti, no Instagram congratulations, and certainly no King Cnut starter pack with an instruction manual. Just an exhausted army, a half-burnt capital, and about 3 dozen nobles who are trying really hard not to look like they're considering stabbing you in the back. So, you take a breath, and then you do something bold. You govern. Yeah, that's right. You put down the sword. You pick up the scroll. You sit on an actual throne, still kind of creaky, and start doing king stuff. Not very Viking of you, is it? First, you confirm existing English laws. No wholesale upheaval, no Viking martial law, just, hey, keep doing what you were doing. But now the guy in charge has a cooler beard. It works. The people, sick of years of war, begin to accept you, grudgingly. Then, to win the church, you repent, sort of. You shower monasteries with land and coin, wear fancy robes instead of furs, and even commission church repairs. You're still a Viking underneath, but on the surface, you're polishing your Christian king cosplay to a royal shine. You even keep Emma, yes, the Emma, Æthelred's widow, by your side. Not just as a trophy, but as a political partner. She's sharp, well-connected, and exactly the kind of Anglo-Norman bridge you need. The fact that she sometimes looks like she's plotting your assassination is just part of the charm. Still, not everything runs smoothly. Your old Viking buddies, they start grumbling. What happened to burning churches and stealing relics? One mutters during a royal banquet. You respond by promoting him to a coastal garrison in the north, very far north. Here's where the weirdest episode of your reign creeps in, the one people talk about for centuries. Often badly. You're walking along the seashore one morning, probably wearing a fur-trimmed cloak, possibly wondering if your crown makes your forehead look wide, and one of your advisors starts with the flattery. You know the type. Oh, great king, you are the mightiest ruler on earth. Your word is law. Your power unchallenged. Blah, blah, blah. You stop, raise an eyebrow, and, in one of the most iconic, misunderstood moments in medieval lore, you command a servant to bring a throne. You have it placed on the beach, right where the tide is rolling in. You sit down. You raise your hand. And you command the sea to halt. The waves, not giving the tiniest fig who you are, keep coming. One by one, they splash your feet, soak your robes, and very possibly ruin your boots. You sit in silence, letting the salt water climb. And then you turn to your entourage and say something like, "Let all men know how empty and worthless is the power of kings, for none is worthy of the name but God, whom the sea obeys." Mic drop. Historians still argue whether this story is apocryphal, symbolic, or just a clever PR stunt. Some say it was your way of humbling your court. Others think it was a dramatic rebuke of sycophants. Either way, the imagery sticks. King Cnut challenging the ocean. It's kind of poetic when you think about it. But this beach stunt isn't your only legacy. While everyone remembers the tide scene, few remember the real work you're doing. You centralize tax systems. You standardize coinage. You appoint Englishmen and Danes equally to positions of power. You're actually trying to build a blended kingdom, part Viking steel, part Anglo-Saxon tradition. You even issue something close to a propaganda campaign. Chroniclers in your court write about how just and wise you are. They conveniently leave out the pillaging and that 5-week breakdown you had years ago. Who can blame them? But don't get too cozy, because over the sea, your other kingdom Denmark is restless. Your half-brother Harald has died, and the Danish crown passes to you. That's right, you are now King of England and Denmark. And if you think managing one kingdom is hard, try it with entirely different religions, economies, and temper tantrums. You spend the next few years hopping between courts, issuing laws, suppressing rebellions, bribing bishops, and inventing the medieval version of a frequent sailor miles program. And let's not forget your next big flex, Norway. Yep. In 1028, you sail north with a massive fleet and take Norway, too. Your rival, King Olaf II, flees into exile. And just like that, your empire now stretches across 3 kingdoms: England, Denmark, Norway. You are officially the North Sea Emperor. It's wild. You once the awkward son of a warlord, who reigned for 5 embarrassing weeks, now rule the sea itself. You're the guy, but it comes at a cost. You're aging faster. The pressure is constant. You miss England when you're in Denmark, and vice versa. The peace you work so hard to build is always just one famine, one assassination, one papal grudge away from collapse. And beneath it all, the same question lingers: how long can a Viking truly hold a throne built on English soil? The cracks are small, but they're forming. The unity you forged begins to fray at the edges. Enemies whisper, allies age, and your own children know. Your children are already starting to scheme. But for now, you are still king. The sea may not have listened to you that day on the beach, but kingdoms, they did. You've ruled longer than anyone expected. The 5-week flameout that wants to find you is now just a footnote in your legacy. Across England, Denmark, and Norway, people kneel at your name. Priests pray for you in Latin. Bards sing your praises. In smoky longhouses, even the ones who hate you can't deny it. You've reshaped the map. And yet, the weight never leaves your shoulders. It's 1035 now, and your world feels smaller, tighter, more fragile. Your once mighty frame creaks with age. Your joints stiff from years in the saddle and winters spent in damp halls, arguing with stubborn nobles. Your once blazing red gold hair is graying. And your sons, well, they're definitely not you. Let's talk about them. You've got several, because of course you do. You're a Viking king. Family planning was never the strong suit of the 11th century. But to matter most now, Harold Harefoot, your English-born son from a pre-Emma relationship, and Cnut, your son with Queen Emma, the more legitimate heir in the eyes of most nobles, and definitely her eyes. Harold is clever, ruthless, popular with your Viking troops, and absolutely determined to take over. Cnut is cautious, educated, half English, and more your political ideal. You want him to rule. But guess what? He's stuck in Denmark, and Harold is right here, shaking hands and kissing babies like he invented medieval campaigning. You've tried to manage it. You split duties. You write long-winded letters. You summon bishops and earls and threaten to haunt their great-grandchildren if they disobey you. But the minute your back aches too long or your voice weakens, you can feel it. The sharks are circling. Even your own courtiers whisper, who comes next? What happens when Cnut goes? They forget that you were the boy who watched villages burn, the prince who lost a kingdom, the warlord who ruled by fire, and then figured out how to rule with law. Still, nobody beats time. You die quietly in 1035 in Shaftesbury. Not on a battlefield. Not with a crown on your head. No lightning bolts, no sea parting, just a dim room, a flickering candle, and the weight of an empire in slow unravel. And here's the kicker. The minute you're gone, everything you built begins to fall apart. Harold takes England. Cnut fights for it. Norway slips away. Denmark stumbles. Within a few years, your North Sea empire is scattered like ashes in the wind. Your dream of a unified northern realm, gone, but your legend, that endures. To this day, people still argue about you. Were you a ruthless conqueror who got lucky, a wise ruler who evolved with power, a Viking who wore a crown but never lost the sea in his soul? They remember you from that beach scene mostly. The king who told the ocean to stop and knew it wouldn't. But maybe that's the real story. You weren't delusional. You weren't trying to prove your divinity. You were reminding the world, reminding yourself that no matter how many crowns you wear, the tide always comes. And still, for a while, you held it back. And now, as the echoes of swords fade and the sea laps softly at the shore, your journey drifts toward its end. You sit again, not on a throne, but in the quiet warmth of memory. The gold of conquest glows faintly, but no longer blinds you. The cold steel in your hand has cooled to silence. The cheers of your warriors, the mutters of courts, the chanting of monks all blur together now. Just distant sounds beneath the hush of wind and wave. You were once a boy with salt on your cheeks and ambition in your chest. You became a king not by fate, but by stubbornness, strategy, and a strange kind of grace. You lost, you learned. You returned, and for a moment, just a blink in history, you held 3 kingdoms in your hand. Like smooth stones warmed by fire, now let them rest. Let the tide roll in. The waves don't listen, but we do. We remember. So, close your eyes. Picture the fjords, the long ships, the candlelit halls. The hush of a kingdom sleeping under a cold, starless sky. No more war horns, no more councils. Just breath, just peace. Drift back through time, soft as sea foam. The storm has passed. The sea is calm. Sleep well, King Cnut.